Hello, welcome back to the Mindset Check podcast. I'm your host, Misha McKittrick. This is a podcast where you believe that as you take time for a mindset check, you have more power than you think you do. And where we also believe that magic begets magic. I have such a different and very exciting podcast to share with you today. I cannot wait. Before we jump into the podcast, I want to welcome you in case if you are a new listener. If you're a new listener, the podcast Mindset Check is all about helping us check into power that we already have inside of us that sometimes we're just not aware of. And when we check into it, it ignites it and it helps us to step back into a place of, being in control of our lives, being back into a place of creating in our lives. And we are currently in season 3 of the podcast. And in season 1 and in season 2, we kind of get really deep and juicy into a big story, okay? Like a big story that happened when I was young. We go through my journal. I was actually 14 and pregnant and went through a lot of things. And by nature of me sharing those things with you, we get to walk through the life of what this young girl was going through together. And somehow it allows you to see your life too, kind of intertwined in that, even if your life was wildly different or is currently wildly different. Ultimately, it helps us to be aware a little bit more of how life is going and that we can actually check into joy in the struggle, light in the darkness. We can actually check into other things, and by way of checking into other things, different energies, different vibrations, different ways of thinking about things, it helps us to, in effect, go down a different path, to live life differently. So we check into all of that stuff. We go through, rocky relationships and low vibration and betrayal. And we really talk about how to rise above it. We talk about grief. We talk about things in season 2 when my current husband comes into the picture and kind of shares his side of the story. It's really fun stuff. So if you're new and you have any desire to go back and listen to those seasons, there's an invitation to do so. And this is also the kind of podcast where in season 3, you can pick up wherever you want to and just listen and feel uplifted and inspired to not only continue to live your life, but to live your life in a different state. In other words, you're experiencing something different on the inside, and therefore what you experience on the outside is so, so different. So that is the goal and the aim of the podcast, and we just welcome you and invite you into this beautiful energy. Okay, now we get to jump into today's episode, and I'm really excited to share with you because I just had this idea. Because a lot of times when I'm with my friends, I get to share about things that feel really, really magical to me. And when things feel magical and you talk about things that are magic, it invites magic into your life. It's the most amazing equation. And by magic, what I really mean is pure uplifting goodness, okay? Like anything that aligns with or brings light, including all divine experiences that leave you feeling excited, tingling, or in awe. That's kind of a definition that I wrote about the way that I think about magic, because I think sometimes I use this word magic and people are going like, wait a second, what are you talking about? What are you really getting at with magic? And that's essentially what I mean. Anything that brings that wonder, that awe, things that you see, things that you feel, things that you have part in creating, and synchronicities that happen, right? Things that, because we are living in a certain vibration, we get to attract into our life. And so what I was hoping for today is that I could drop you into a conversation that I have with my girlfriends where we're just reporting on magic in our life. And when we are reporting on this magic, you on the listening end, you get to listen for it. You get to be inspired by it. And then by doing so, you learn to search for it. You learn to look for it in your life and effectively create magic just by way of what you're paying attention to. And so now I want to drop you into this conversation that I'm having with my girlfriends. And before we do, I want to give you a little bit of a feel for who they are. So each of them are, honestly, they are light. They are goodness, and they are all incredible souls who really are trying to serve their purpose in this world. So the first person that you're going to hear from is Amy. And just so you know, I'm going to put all of their contact information in the notes below because each of them has a special way of functioning in the world, right? And a space where you can be invited in to work with them or listen to their podcasts or different ways to connect with them as well. And so I'm going to put all of that in the show notes for you. But essentially, you're going to be meeting Amy, LeeAnne, and Rachael. And Amy's voice, like I said, is the first one that you're going to hear. She does something called biodecoding, which is fascinating. She helps you clear your past, by way of a conversation and being able to reset a code for you for your living so that you can move through your life more effectively. That's kind of a short explanation of really what Amy focuses on a lot in her one-on-ones and when she meets with people. LeeAnne, she is very interesting in the way that she does design work, and she does design work in a way that, she has two branches of it where she really is designing homes and really helping you have your space, your physical space actually all set up and being able to mimic the feel and the mood and the energy that you want to reflect in your space or to invite into your space. But then she also has this podcast called Design Ease. And in this podcast, she talks about how to design your life and how to bring in different levels of what you want to exist. And so she's a really fascinating soul as well. And then Rachael, she is phenomenal. She has a podcast called Raising Vibrant Kids, and she focuses a lot on energy and vibration. And this woman has all of these women have just been such amazing pillars for me to be able to rely on and reach out to. And so the conversation that you're hearing is also a very real conversation between friends and, people just dreaming up fun ideas and being able to share with each other. So we're going to drop right into what Amy is saying and explaining to us about an experience that led to her seeing magic unfolding in her life. Let's jump in.
We were talking about a little bit about biodecoding and the possibilities. And I was going to share an example when I first started exploring this body of work, which is based in the idea that our body expresses a symptom as in response to stuff that's going on. And when we can reset the program, when we can find the code and reset the program, our body can be put in a position to do what it does and heal. And the magic part that I was going to share is related to my son. So when I was first discovering biodecoding, he had a cyst on his wrist, and it was this big bubble, and it wasn't hurting or anything, but it was there. And so we went to the doctor and they drained it. And then it came back. And the doctor said, well, now it's time for surgery. And I was like, really? On a 10-year-old, we're going to modify his body? It's not causing any pain. It was just, when he bent his wrist down, it was there. And it wasn't like an infection. There was so I thought, well, I'm exploring this biodecoding. I'll try this with him. And I facilitated with kids. It's different than adults. I would say when I work with younger kids, it's more of like a fun conversation versus like a dive into the deep subconscious because they're more fresh. Like he's closer to what's actually happening. And the other thing with children is sometimes the emotional root cause of something can be related to a parent. And that's not a blame thing. As parents know, we all know we're just doing our best, but it could be something that they're going through anyway. So I just said, so I looked at the decoding literature, which is there's like possible conflicts, so stuff going on in people's lives where that could be related to the wrist, bone, synovial, all this different stuff. So there's this body of work that identifies that. And as I reviewed it, I was like, okay, this is a possibility for him. What it was related to is parents' perception of work, and that work was drudgery and not fun, and that you had to work hard for money, and I know that to be present in parts of his life. And I was like, well, I just facilitated this easy conversation. Like, what are you feeling about, what do you think you want to do when you grow up? And he's like, well, I really like to do marine biology. I'm interested in that. And then he was like, but it won't make enough money. And so I was like, okay, there we go. And so I facilitated him forming a new belief, right? So maybe it could be amazing, and if you're interested in it. And he articulated a new belief, and he went on about his day. And then that cyst went away, and because they had scheduled the surgery, and when it came time for surgery, I was like, it's gone, we don't have to do it. So that is the cool part of that the biodecoding, right? Is that when we reset a belief that in his example, it wasn't his to carry anyway, right? Then the body can heal. So the magic that happened for me recently is we found a school in the Bahamas, and it's focused on marine biology, and they get to study about all kinds of stuff and get scuba certified, and it's amazing. And he had to apply and get accepted, and he's there now. And when he was getting ready to go, I didn't remember the repair, right, that I just articulated. I remember like going, wow, biodecoding is cool. I'm going to take a deep dive in this. And that was a few years ago. And
how many years ago, Amy?
I think it was 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was 3 years ago. I've been studying and practicing for 3.5 years.
Wait, how old is he?
He's now 15.
Oh, okay.
So he would have been, math.
12.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
He would have been 12. Okay, so he would have been 12. And the thing that I didn't put together until we were getting him ready to go, I was like, wait a minute. This was part of his repair.
Mm.
It's not a small thing. Like I know I just tied it all together for y'all now, but I didn't think about that until I was like, oh my gosh, if we can reset the past in a way that forms a new belief, that can heal a symptom. And look what he attracted to him,
Mm-hmm.
right? Not just any camp. He's going to marine biology and studying and getting immersed in his passion.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just felt extraordinarily magical that it turned out that way for him. What a gift, right?
What a gift. What a huge piece of magic. And, it's interesting because I've been thinking about the awareness that we bring to life and the awakeness to be able to see magic, right? Because if you didn't tie it all together, maybe you would have just thought like, oh, he chose something he liked.
That's how I felt at first.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, that's so cool. I'm glad that's, and then all of a sudden it just like this little drop came in,
mm-hmm.
and I was like, but wait.
Yes. That's gorgeous. Okay.
Yeah.
I love it. So something that happened to me just this week that I loved so much was my son, who's on a mission. You all know that my middle son is on a mission, and he's kind of close to where Rach is at. And he sent me a message and he said, "Hey, Mom, can you check on this person for me?" It was one of his teachers, mentors when he was here. She's an older woman. She's probably about my age. He said, "Can you check on her for me, Mom?" And I was like, "Sure." Like totally like out of pocket, but not until you realize, right? And so I immediately just like called her, and she was at a friend's house. She was telling me like, "Yeah, things are okay. I mean, I kind of went through, kind of dating right now." And because she had gone through a hard relationship, and she was like, "I'm just putting it out, just put it out there and pray for a good man for me." And, kind of like a conversation like that. So I was like, "Okay, great. Good to talk to you," kind of a conversation. She texted me the next morning. She's like, "Listen," she's like, "to be like just totally straight with you, it's like one of the hardest weeks because I had to go back to court with my ex, and there was all this stuff that went on. And essentially, she was telling me that life was tough for her. And here, my son asked me to reach out to her because he had a feeling, right?" And so, the thing that I love about magic, that to me is like a definition of magic just being pure and uplifting. Magic is really anything that aligns with or brings light, including all divine experiences that leave you feeling excited, tingling, or in awe, right? Things we see, things we feel, things we have part in creating, and synchronicities. And so, you know, just in total recognition of just the beauty of life, and that how magical it feels to reach out to someone because of a little feeling, and then to have almost immediate, like, um affirming that, like, that came from a place where, yeah, she needed to be loved. She just needed to be loved, so I thought that was something that was really cool, that just barely happened this week.
That is so beautiful.
Yeah.
And you didn't dismiss it. You know what I mean? You were
Right.
like, you saw it
Right.
for what it was and reached out.
Right. And for sure, let my son know, like, "Hey, you were like right on the money. You were right on the money. Like, keep listening, keep listening,
Yeah,
you know?"
I feel like when you gave us the assignment, Mish, for like like to just kind of be like, hey, like notice the magic this week. Notice, like, that when I started thinking about the different things like within my own house, and that I would notice these like little things of like my two youngest who like fight often, just like holding hands on a walk, where I was like, look, they're holding hands, there's love, there's magic there, like, or my daughter just, handing me a sticker being like, "You're the best mom ever," and it like was touching my heart and being like, oh, she still thinks I'm special, like I'm important to her,
Yeah.
even though she's
Totally.
like entering those teen years. Yeah. Or just like, or having the intuition, right? That
Hmm.
like to know that you need to move on something, or that you need to and it's funny that you just said, and because the two words that I really heard was like, number one, kind of this intuition, this like
Hmm.
intuitive knowing that something, like with your son, where you kind of were like, oh, I need to go do this, and then kind of knowing that it's interconnected and that it's actually there for a reason. And then number two, that it's like this total that it's always connected to love, that there's this kind of like, whether or not you're noticing love, feeling love, or that like something is occurring, that where there is love going on, right? A passion, love of marine biology, or love for this teacher.
Hmm.
And that like, and that oftentimes that those two things are kind of like creating the magic. Like, that's why we feel that it's magical.
Yeah. Yes. And the recognition of it is something that's really important to be able to be in magic, right? Like, there's this quote I heard from, this is like just like a little clip that I saw on Instagram. And it's from Meg Ryan on Joe versus the Volcano. And I watched the movie, and the movie does not line up with the quote. So just so you know, it's not really worth the watch. But but she says, "My father says that almost the whole world is asleep. Everybody you know, everybody you see, everybody you talk to. He says that only a few people are awake, and they live in a state of constant, total amazement." And that's just the awakeness and the willingness to see like what really is happening in our life, you know? It's amazing. Okay, tell us, does anybody else have some other piece of magic to share that they've experienced?
Okay, I'm going to tell you the magic of my puppy because our puppy came to us in a kind of, she wasn't a decision. It was actually like we suffered a devastating loss this year of our actual dog that was only 7 years old. And it wasn't planned and it was sudden and she wasn't ill. And so the loss of her would seem very unplanned. But we got this dog that I'm going to say, like, I didn't research her. My husband and my son went down and they drove and they picked out the specific puppy. But I realized in hindsight that, like, I dreamt of this puppy. I knew she was coming. I had a dream, I have a vision of her. And on top of that, we've named our puppy Bella. And when I was a really little girl, I just remembered this the other day when we were thinking about magic. But and to take a step back, a few years ago, I was trying to have a baby. So long time ago, I thought my first child was going to be a girl and I was going to name her Belle because back in the day, there was Beauty and the Beast and I was going to name her something else, but call her Belle was going to be her middle name anyways. Long story short and fast forward, I realized that although this journey came to us, like I wasn't ready to have a puppy or anything like that. It's just like a magical, like I had a dream. I knew at 43 I was going to have this puppy. I thought it was going to be a baby though. Like, you know, we think we can manifest what we want. In my head, it was going to be this child. But here I have my little girl. She's very fluffy. She's a Bernese mountain dog, named Bella. And so somehow this baby has joined our family in no way the way that I thought we were going to have it. But you know, all the things that I wanted to have was more time at home to be able to be at home with my child and the baby that I thought that I was going to have. And now I'm living my dream and just trying to remember that it's my dream because, you know, that's still layered with like having no time for yourself and being at home with it, you know, baby kind of full time. But I just, there is so much magic in it. And so that's been my journey is remembering that she is something that I brought into my life because like you know, she's a need and she's part of my destiny. And, you know, that we wanted this and that there's just a magical way that she came about to being in our life. And she's just actually like sunshine in a bottle because she's the sweetest soul. And just imagined her sniffing daisies all the time because the face is the beautiful, happiest thing. So there's just so much magic in every moment. And also making sure we see the magic because also at 4:52 in the morning, it's harder to see the magic, but the birds are singing and it's beautiful outside. So it's there. You just got to wake up a little for it. So yeah.
What seriously, what a great you just have to wake up for it. We were just talking about but then it's like the literal. That's so great. I love it. And I love that your dream, you know, you just shifted a little bit differently to see it as a fulfillment of the true dream. Yeah.
So they are the cutest puppies. Bernese mountain dog. And I bet she loves Canada.
Yeah, she does. She doesn't like the heat we're having right now. She's sleeping in the closet somewhere actually because it's so hot. But she's such a gift. Like she really is a gift. So it's just remembering that and then honoring like the journey that brought her here, you know, being able to feel the joy in mixed in with the sadness of the loss. And I don't know, it's a weird juxtaposition, but also just, I think me figuring out the math behind it also makes it so much easier to accept that this is the flow that the river was supposed to take, you know, like it wasn't something I would have chosen. We wouldn't have chosen for our dog to have left us, the one that did, but I do believe that this was the destiny that was supposed to happen. So it makes it a little easier in a sense.
Yeah. It's beautiful. Yeah. I love it. What were you saying, Amy?
I was just going to say that's the gift that you know, I've heard both of you say, both Rachael and LeeAnne, that when Misha gave us she's like, let's get together and talk about magic. And then what did we all do? We started looking for it in our lives. That's the gift of setting an intention. You know, if your intention is like, I'm going to notice magic, then it's there, even at 4:32 in the morning, or in the midst of, you know, of raising kids.
Yeah.
And all that goes with that.
Yeah.
Mish, have you ever seen the movie Collateral Beauty? I don't know if you've,
You know what?
I think we've talked about it before.
I have seen it. I'm gonna write it because it's something I want to rewatch. Yes. Tell
Yeah.
us.
I was just reminded when LeeAnne was talking about that she would never have necessarily wanted her dog to pass away in order to like this new life, this new puppy to kind of come in. That like when so I was telling you guys earlier that my dad had passed away in January of 2023, and when I was preparing for his celebration of life and my speech for it, it was interesting because he had done a podcast with one of our friends, Rachael Brumberger, that like wasn't put out or whatever, but the gift of having this podcast of him talking was like such a gift, and it was so magical to be able to hear his voice again. Well, he had talked at length about Collateral Beauty and how it was such a great movie, and basically that we should go watch, like, and so I went and watched it. I'd never seen it before. I didn't know that this was like something that he even enjoyed and liked. And when I went and watched it, it basically wrote like the speech or the talk that he gave with Rachel, and then the movie basically wrote my speech for me, because I was in a place where I just couldn't talk, and I felt like it was very like it was basically gifted to me in terms of this like speech that I gave at my dad's celebration of life. But the Collateral Beauty was so interesting because it's the man who loses his daughter. It's played by Will Smith, but it's basically like, and these kind of characters come in as angels, but they just say, don't forget to see the collateral beauty. And that like, even within the devastation of the things that happen within our life, sometimes the things that we're facing, that the collateral beauty is always there. Whether or not, and you could call that magic. You could say that the magic is always there, and that if you're looking for it, that it will present itself. And so it's just a really beautiful reminder, like when you're facing tough stuff in life, that there's still magic there. There's still love present. Yeah.
Yeah. And magic, looking for magic puts you in recognition of magic, which then puts you in a state of gratitude, which then puts you in a state of receptivity. And then you're back to receiving magic. It is the most beautiful cycle to be in, but we do have to be conscious enough to be in it, right? So even just simple things like, I don't know if you guys have done a lot of breath work. I mean, I know we've done a lot of meditation collectively. Breath work is something that I love. Like, it's kind of like, meditation for me daily is like a non-negotiable. Breath work feels like a treat every single time that I do it. And yesterday I did a little bit of breath work, and I have been experiencing these truly, truly magical things that I can't put an explanation behind yet. Because if you don't know, if you're either listening or we're talking here and you don't know what breath work does, is it allows your body to process things that we don't necessarily have to think through. So in other words, you can be processing and going through something and your body knows how to move the energy. It's not necessarily like you have to therapeutically like be talking about it, if that makes sense. Excuse me. So I was doing breath work and, well, back up. In some of my breathwork sessions, I'm experiencing at the end of the breathwork, I'm seeing and hearing things. So I'm seeing like these blue, like mandala shapes changing, and I'm like, what? It's blowing my mind. And then I'm also hearing it's kind of like, I want to call it like a rush of wind or just a noise like that. Have you heard that, LeeAnne?
Yeah, I was thinking ocean. It's like an ocean.
Yes.
It's so weird. And then I always see like it's almost like a watercoloring of colors, but mine's are like blue and orange.
What?
It's so cool.
So cool, right? And so like I don't even know what that means yet.
Trying to remember what the girl said about it. I think it's just like that you're like open. I think it's just a sign that your brain is open. Because I was like in a lead breath work when I was doing it.
Wow.
Yeah,
How
well,
cool.
I wonder, I mean, it would be interesting to know the science behind breath work. I know that Joe Dispenza is putting science to what he does in the 7-week 7-week immersion, I guess you could call it. And he uses mandalas in those 7 weeks, and he has measured like levels of our brain's ability to make levels of melatonin, serotonin, and DMT, which is a psychedelic. And he's like, we have our own pharmacy.
Right.
So it sounds like what you're hitting, and the where you're able to access possibly is your own ability to create that pharmacy in your head that gives you access to the mystical.
Right. Exactly. Like, I feel like I'm like on the edge or the precipice of something, or maybe like I talk myself through, like, just enjoy it right now, whatever. I love the way that Joe Dispenza talks about it. And I love the way that he talks about the value of releasing it on our own and not using something to get us there. In other words, a substance to get us there. That if we use a substance to get us there, it's a shortcut that robs us of layers of the experience. And that's like for me, that's a whole podcast. And I think that might be interesting to people. But these things I'm experiencing in breath work, this energy that I'm experiencing in breath work, even the feelings that I'm experiencing in meditation and in my heart coherence, when I feel all this tingling and my heart growing in my chest, like, those are incredible, magical feelings to me. And yesterday I was doing breath work, and I was, I guess, not doing the breath as good as I normally do. Like, I would kind of like find myself not breathing, and I'd go like back into the breath, and I was like, okay, I want the full experience. And so I want to make sure that I'm breathing. And so I was doing this. And after we got through the intense breathing part, she asks you to go into just your normal breathing. And she put a different music on that was a little bit more relaxing. And I noticed that I became so relaxed, like I almost drifted off to sleep. And what was the coolest feeling was this intense amount of energy that came into my body, that it wasn't a shock or startling, but it was like I was aware that, like, I'm no longer drifting off, and I'm like totally here and present for something that is passing and working itself out in my body. You guys, it's magic. It's literal magic. And I'm like, we have access to that inside of our bodies when we want to participate in something like that. It's just so cool, you know?
Yeah, I love breath work for that reason. And it's because if we were talking about vibrations, I think Rachael was mentioning that, like, it feels like when there's a lot of people that know this to be true, but when we can raise our vibration, then it's in that state of connection to that feeling that our body is experiencing. We can create love, we can create joy, we can create a vision for the future. And that's when the magic happens. And I have an interesting relationship with manifestation right now, but that's when we can create in alignment with the divine, right? When we're in that higher vibration of connection to love or joy. Or
what do you mean when you say you have an interesting relationship to manifestation? You couldn't say that. I may not ask you, know that.
Oh, well, I will start by saying I'm figuring things out. But I have had enough life experience of really, really hard things. Like, just, I'm not going to go into the hard things, but I was catching up with a friend, and I told her about a lot of what I had experienced, and she started crying. You know, so when you're going through those hard things, you know, it's good to have hope, and it's good to work to see the magic and work to be in the higher vibrations, but it's not always possible to be there. And if you're so focused on manifesting and you're not getting what you want, then, or I mean, I think I felt this. I was like, but I'm doing all the things, you know. Then it becomes a different animal. And so there's a space for surrender that isn't always addressed in the manifesting when you use the word manifesting. Does that make sense? So it's like I'm sitting with the balance of surrender, connection with God, understanding that not everything's, you know, supposed to happen. It's not my will, right?
Yeah.
And also accessing this magic that we know to be true.
Yeah.
Right? We know that when we raise
Right.
our vibration, and sometimes that's when it's like, oh my God, I can't believe that just happened. And there is so there's a partnership. And that's what I'm sitting with, is like, what is that partnership between surrender and manifestation? So that's behind my comment.
And I think too, like trying to not slip into, or being aware that you're not slipping into need, right? Because that's like, that's where, when we're manifesting and it's not coming forward, then we try to like, we're trying so much that now we're in the need of it, and that's what we're manifesting versus the thing that we actually want. And so then it's like, but it is like this interesting like path that we continue to navigate through. Yeah. Were you going to say something, LeeAnne?
I was just going to say that's been very similar to my journey, even when we're talking about the dog thing, because I was trying to manifest a baby. I was trying to bring a child. I mean, it took 3 miscarriages for me to decide to allow that to go. You know, I stopped the tracking, I stopped the trying. And then it's just this funny journey to like realize that maybe the baby that I was trying to bring into my life, I had no control over. And so I think for me, the journey has been knowing what I want, and then like you're saying, like the surrendering and allowing. Like I knew I wanted a baby. It's funny to laugh at because I'm carrying around a dog now. It's just a baby. I knew I wanted my life to change. I knew that there were some really big reasons that I had these goals, and I think that I really focused on those things. And then that's the things that came true. You know, I ended up having a huge career change, and working from home, and a lot of stability that I was looking for, and a baby, but not the way that not the way that I was trying to bring it into this world. It had I did not see the connection, but there is a huge connection there. So I think I think that was a lot of my journey, is trying to understand that manifesting isn't necessarily you deciding, I'm going to have a baby and hopefully it's going to be in 9 months, and like come September, that would be nice. And, and just allowing myself to, especially because I'm a projector, allowing myself to really just see what I want and allow the universe to give it to me, because that's my journey in life, is to just place the order, have the dream, and then wait for it to come. And like, it's funny, as the more as I accept that, the more I can see how it's happened in my life. And then the more I feel like it's such a powerful tool that I have to be really careful with it, so that I'm making sure that I'm dreaming the specific things that I want, and not, like words have power, and you don't want to be saying things out loud that you don't want to be true.
Or even thinking, if you can help
or
it.
even thinking. Yeah.
Yeah. That's so great.
Yeah, there's a balance. I didn't mention I'm a single mom. So there's, the reason why I wanted to mention that in this moment is there's something that you said, LeeAnne, that was so resonant about wanting a baby, and you're good at manifesting, right? Other things, but it's surrendering and allowing it to come in other ways. I think that's what I'm playing with, because my life doesn't look like how I was hoping it would. It doesn't. In some ways it's better. That's noticing the magic.
Yeah.
And in some ways, I'm still calling in a sense of ease and security and love. So yeah.
Yeah. Gorgeous.
Yeah, I think what I was just thinking, I mean, kind of going back to the Joe Dispenza thing, but just when I was hearing that it was kind of like magic is really just opening to possibility, right? To something kind of greater than what maybe we thought would occur is going to occur, kind of a thing. But kind of what you guys are saying, it's not like you can necessarily control the magic. And actually, if you control it, you don't feel magical, in some ways, because it's almost when it's like, when you feel like it's actually coming from a higher power is actually when it feels magical. And that if we could like control everything, I don't know that would necessarily feel magical, because we were creating it versus something higher than us creating it, and so I think that that's interesting, and that where we're saying, we can and I do believe that we can ask, where you guys are talking about manifesting, ask and open, and that where we're talking about the vibration of things, that like you see magic more when you're in a higher vibration and when you're feeling better. And that the whole, I'm thinking of the scale, basically. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Abraham Hicks, like the scale of emotions and vibrations and things like that, but in terms of the law of attraction. But that like what you're like that Amy's right, that like when you're feeling depressed and you're feeling, you know, sad or grief or whatever, that no, you're not necessarily going to be in that magical place of love and into like and just kind of knowing and things I think that magical things can happen during that time frame, but that a lot of times I don't know, I've found for myself in the last year that sometimes the emotions that I'm experiencing and the vibrations that I'm experiencing are there for a reason. And that I really have to like stop, pay attention, understand and learn and grow from them. And that that's really where the magic is. And that if I don't kind of do that, that I'm not actually hearing the what I'm supposed to be hearing in that moment, you know, that is kind of my soul talking to me and saying, hey, like you're feeling this pain, this sadness, and like there may be love underlying that, but like that you really kind of have to go through this in order to get to the other side.
Yeah. I
In
love
order to
the
open back up. Yeah. Go ahead.
I just
Sorry.
love the idea of like what happens in the waiting and what we become and what continues to come to us because of what we are in the waiting. So let me explain. So I was talking to Jake about this example that I had told you guys about a friend of mine who checked into a hotel room, things went wrong, and she immediately went into a space of like, ooh, I can't wait to see what's happening because it's probably going to be amazing. And she ended up getting moved into a better room and better acoustics for her to record her podcast. She got like a hotel credit. There were all these different things, you know? And so Jake and I were having this conversation and we said, let's just start this mantra of like, let the hotel give you a credit. Like just with every single thing in life. Like, let's just say like we're in the waiting and we could be, because if my friend in the hotel room would have said like, this is terrible, it's the worst vacation ever, blah, blah, blah. Like those really good things, she might have like blocked from being able to come to her, right? Like because of the energy that she's putting forward. And so in the waiting, we have an opportunity. In the waiting, we have an opportunity to quote, let the hotel give you a credit, you know? So I got this news the other day, and this was just like so fun for me. I got a text from someone in one of my business like pod groups, and she was saying like, oh my gosh, are you even aware that like you are now ranking on Listen Notes, which Listen Notes is a place where you can go and like see like, you know, the stats of different podcasts and stuff like that. And her and I were not like ranking on Listen Notes at all, and we were super frustrated about it because it's kind of a place where people can go to like see, you know, if you have credibility and if you have like, you know, like do I want to collaborate with them, or should I do something with them, like, you know, give them a sponsorship or whatever. Like it's kind of important for you to be able to have that. And so it's like me with that being in a space of just like, all right, I have like emailed the people, I'm doing all I can on my part, I'm putting it out there, I'm like wanting my podcast to like be successful. And she sends me this like note, and I go look, and you guys, my podcast is ranking 2.5 like globally in my niche, and 2.5 the highest like in the two like sorry in the 2.5%. There's like 3 million, over 3 million people in that category. And so, right? So it was like immediately like, you know, like, but I'm telling you that that's been a long time coming. So the waiting, let the hotel give you a credit, right?
I like to think of them as seeds, like you planting these seeds, because I'm a gardener, and like we don't know, like some years seeds come up that I didn't plant.
Yeah.
You know, like you don't know, like 5 years ago, I was probably 10 years ago, I had the dream about the puppy.
Yes.
And I remember it, you know, and like we're planting all of these seeds. So like we never know when they're coming up.
Yeah.
Hotel
100%.
credits.
Hotel credit. Let the hotel give you a credit. Don't you think that we could put that on t-shirt? Like, let's
Yeah.
just put it on a t-shirt as a reminder for all of us. Like, just let the hotel give you a credit, but you have to allow yourself to be in a certain energy in the waiting so that you're not pushing it away from you, so that you're continuing to be in the creation of it, or in, I should say, in a more descriptive or a better way to describe it, in assistance in the creation of it, right? And then not slipping into need or fixing or whatever the thing is that we can slip into the energy of, just continually being in the receptivity and in allowing, right? I think that's the trick. I don't know. That's one
Yeah.
of the tricks.
I think it
That's
is. I think
powerful.
it, I think so. Sorry, go.
I was just like, that's wisdom, all
Yeah.
you guys. I mean, I'm reflecting on my own journey, and I got tired of waiting last year.
Mhm.
And, you know, it looked like depression and desperation, and it's so good to be out of that and also recognize my part in it, you know? And like the looking at like, ooh, I wonder what's coming.
Mhm. Beautiful.
I have given myself permission the last 2 weeks to relax and not go on vacation and tend to my body and sit down and eat. And I read books. I haven't done that, and I don't even tell you how long. And I had resistance to it. And then I also had judgment at times, like I should be doing this, I should be, you know. And then yesterday, when, you know, Misha had given us the assignment of noticing magic, I was on Instagram, and thing after thing after thing popped up that supported this intention of mine to rest. And one was, it says, this is from the holistic psychologist: stop glorifying the person who keeps going and going, even when they're sick, stressed, or going through grief. True strength is in the ability to take a step back so your body can repair and your emotions can process. And then I kept scrolling. 9 types of rest from Institute for Integrative Nutrition. Time away, permission to not be helpful, doing something unproductive, connection to art and nature, alone time at home. There's more. And then the last one that I'll share is, I guess this is Gabby Bernstein. What if, just for today, you could release the need to figure it out?
Mm.
Just for today.
Mhm.
So those aren't the messages that I normally see. You know, I normally it's more it's a different sort. But the fact that I was like questioning whether or not I was doing the thing that was best and my highest good, and then these came up that reinforced the idea of like, gosh, how about you rest?
Yeah.
Why don't you just take a minute?
Mhm. I love the idea that being in, you know, the recognition allows us to slip into magic. Being in the creation allows us to slip into magic. The being of, like, there's different, like, all these different states lend itself to magic, right? And it's just listening to like what we need next, what we need to be reaching for. Because I think that too, like, there's this part where we care for ourselves and we care for that vibration and we all of that stuff, and then we go, well, now it's time to create. Now it's time to step into something different. Now it's time to like be in a different vibration and to be in that, and to go plant some seeds, and then to be back into the vibration of being grateful, you know. And there's just all of this like different ways of being, and the way that we feel called into different things. And ultimately it's our awakeness that allows us to be, you know, in recognition of things like bliss. And when we're in such recognition of things like that, we go, whoa, magic. And when we recognize synchronicities, we go, whoa, magic. And when we see something come to fruition that we had planted a seed about, we go, whoa, magic. And just the recognition of it is so beautiful. And then we continue to be in the loop of it. We go forward and finding more magic and more magic. Isn't this conversation just so incredible? I love getting incredible people together and then watching watching the magic, right? Just listening to the magic. I want to share with you a quote by Albus Dumbledore. He said, "Words are, in my not so humble opinion, our most inexhaustible source of magic." And for me, that's exactly what meeting with friends and sharing magic allows you to sort of unlock. As you begin to speak magic and share magical moments from your life, you start to see more magic. You train your mind to look for it, and you begin to see it happening all around you. When you learn to search for it, to look for it, you see it. And it really does feel amazing to check into that. And I love the way that we talk about all these different equations of the way that we recognize things and the way that it comes back to us, right? We're constantly interacting in this field. We're constantly putting out vibrational energy. And just by way of being able to attract, just like a magnet does, we get to attract something new to us that is in sync with the way that we're feeling. And when we're feeling so good and we're feeling bliss, we're feeling magic, that's exactly what we attract next. So ultimately, through this conversation, I hope that that's what it unlocks for you, that it unlocks possibility, that it unlocks essentially the idea that you have to create your life, and then the tender and beautiful ways that we just wait and be in good vibration and be in allowing. So I hope that you can see through all of these things that we talked about today that essentially you have more power than you think you do when you focus on beautiful and expansive and very good things, that you can unlock magic in your life. I want to thank LeeAnne, Rachael, and Amy for joining me in this episode. It truly is a gift to host them, and I hope that you felt that as well. I would love to know your feedback. If you really loved this episode, then we are totally open to doing more and just talking about magic and talking about the things that we see and recognize in our life and the ways that we're moving through and trying to do our best to be in allowing and so forth. So let us know if you like it and if you want to hear more episodes like this. And don't forget to check the show notes, and I'll leave all of the contact information for these beautiful souls that joined me here today. I also want to remind you to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast, as that really helps the algorithm, right, be able to suggest this podcast to new people so that they can find it too. And as we part with you today, I want to speak more words to be able to invite magic. So I want to share this quote with you to hopefully continue to plant these seeds in your soul. The quote is by an anonymous source. It says, "If you can imagine magic, you can create magic. All it takes is thought and action. The mind is the most powerful tool, and if you start believing in magic, you will start creating it. You will start seeing this magic everywhere." Until next time, my friend.